We want to get straight to that developing story we're following. An ex-U.S. ambassador just arrested, accused of having spied for Cuba, providing secrets to the island for some 40 years. CNN's Evan Perez is here now. So, Evan, court documents were just unsealed. What did they reveal?
Well, they show, Boris, that according to prosecutors, Victor Manuel Rocha, who's 73 years old, was working for the Cuban government. Again, according to the Justice Department, he was working for the Cuban government and the Cuban intelligence services since at least 1981. It appears that in November of 2022, the FBI received a tip that he was working for a foreign government, and so they introduced him to an undercover agent. Someone called him, essentially reached out to him via message on WhatsApp, the encrypted messaging service, and then they began having these conversations. In all, they set up 3 covert meetings in Miami, one of them, the first one happening at a church on Brickell Avenue in public. And they began having these conversations. And according to prosecutors, all of these conversations were recorded, and they have a lot of admissions, they say, from Rocha during this period. According to them, he talked about his outreach to mis compañeros, again, his compatriots in Cuba. I want you to tell my compatriots that I appreciate, I'm very thankful for this alert. Again, he's talking to an undercover agent. He says, since the Dirección General de Inteligencia, right, which is the Cuban intelligence services, asked me to lead a normal life, I have created the legend of a right-wing person. And then he also goes on to talk about how my number one concern, my priority, was the action on the part of Washington that would endanger the life and the leadership of the revolution itself. Again, according to prosecutors, this was something that he's been doing since '81. He served as the ambassador to Bolivia from 1999 to 2022, but he served in a number of other posts for the State Department, including in the Dominican Republic, in Argentina, and the National Security Council, all of this while in the service of the Cuban government. Of course, one of the important parts of this, Boris, you and I were just talking about, during the 1996 shoot-down of the Brothers to the Rescue planes, it happened just outside of Cuban waters, in international waters. He was one of the top diplomats in the U.S. interest sections in Havana, which was obviously the highest level at that point of U.S. diplomacy in the island of Cuba.
Yeah, that was a civilian craft. There were no arms on that plane, and the Cuban government shot it down. The makings of a spy novel, it sounds like.
Right, exactly. And look, we expect him to appear any moment now in a federal court in Miami, where we will hear for the first time whether he has any response to these charges. He was arrested on Friday, and so today is the first time he's appearing before a magistrate in Miami.